It's a crowded field, but cultural appropriation is probably the most insane nonsense yet perpetrated by the snowflake generation. And this matters because Christians are big-time cultural appropriators. And that's a good thing. The Apostle Paul may have been the greatest Christian to walk the earth, but according to today's standards among snowflakes, he got it all wrong. If we are to follow our sensitive compatriots, he is clearly an imperialist, Zionist, Christian cultural appropriator. In 1 Corinthians 9 he boasts, "I have become all things to all people so that by all means I might save some." This is nothing less than a deliberate attempt to appropriate the culture of others to gain control of their minds. Cultural appropriation of the very worst kind. Now, cultural appropriation is defined as taking intellectual property, traditional knowledge, cultural expression or artifacts from someone else's culture without permission. This can include unauthorized use of another culture's dance, dress, music, language, folklore, cuisine, traditional medicine, religious symbols, etc. Now, why is cultural appropriation an issue? It's the last-ditch defence of the failed and discredited doctrine of multiculturalism, which is intent on building walls between cultures and divisions between peoples, and downgrading Western culture into the bargain. Marxists split the world into the oppressed and the oppressors. The oppressed class are never wrong, and the oppressor class are never right. Cultural appropriation, which is a sin only of the West, is seen as a tool of the powerful. The charge of cultural appropriation is a way of diminishing Western culture. As with most causes espoused by social justice warriors, cultural appropriation is a form of fascism, deciding who gets to wear or use certain items depending on the race or culture. Now, this ludicrous concept has led to a 12-year-old white girl suffering online hate as a racist for braiding her hair. White women being told not to wear hoop earrings as it appropriates Latin American culture. The BBC expressing concern about food bloggers fueling racial stereotypes by photographing chopsticks in non-Chinese food. Chanel being criticised for selling boomerangs. A Mexican restaurant being criticised by a student union for handing out sombreros at a freshers' fair. An advert for Canadian gin being pulled for depicting young women wearing parkas, seemingly an Inuit-only clothing item. Cultural appropriation as a moral crime exists only in the overheated imaginations of infantile perpetual offence seekers intent on demonstrating their own righteous superiority. Cultures are not solid entities with hard-edged demarcation lines and boundaries. They are what we've collectively constructed, learned from others, and handed down and shared. We're told that cultural appropriation is about the powerful taking from the weak. The ludicrously correct assure us that when we eat Indian food adapted for European palates, we behave like our colonial forebears. What can be even remotely imperialist about a working-class Brit eating a curry produced by a company owned by second-generation Indian millionaires? There are so many ludicrous situations to which cultural appropriation gives birth that we can become so intent on mocking the idea that we forget the more important objection. This is a dangerous concept. One of the greatest things we human beings have to offer each other is the better products of our respective cultures. Culture is synthesis. Language, our most important cultural product, is not static. Languages exist and develop by borrowing and adapting. Imagine English stripped of words from Greek, Latin, French and other languages. We'd be reduced to little more than grunts. And this is true of every natural language. When you have a glut of tomatoes, making chutney, an Indian food and word, does not make you an imperialist hanking for the days of the Raj. It makes you someone with a way of using a glut of tomatoes. Imagine music without cultural interchange. No jazz, no blues, no country, no Porgy and Bess by Gershwin, no Scottish fantasy by Bruch, no That's All Right by Elvis, no Carmen by Bizet, the list is endless. Without cultural interchange, music would be stifled. Japan at one time attempted to culturally isolate itself, and when finally the West forced the doors open, the Japanese gladly grabbed and adapted anything from the West they thought would make their lives better. This was not cultural appropriation, it was common sense cultural interchange. We cannot understand each other and exchange ideas unless we can experience and taste the culture of the other. Hudson Taylor showed the way. When he first arrived in China, he scandalised other Westerners by not stopping at learning the language. He went further. He appropriated Chinese clothes, ate Chinese food, lived in Chinese quarters, adopted Chinese modes of politeness and general demeanour. He deliberately appropriated Chinese culture to exchange with them the greatest gift of all, the gospel of Christ Jesus. Free cultural exchange is good for all of us.